So for the month of March, we are continuing with our fairy tales. And for this week especially, because it is the week of St. Patrick's Day, we have an Irish folktale called Finn McCool, the Giant of Knockmany Hill. In olden times, when Ireland's glens and woods were still filled with fairies and leprechauns, giants, too, lived on that fair Emerald Isle. One of the finest of those big folk was Finn McCool, who was wed to the lovely great lass Una. They made their home on the top of Knockmany Hill. Now, as any giant, Finn McCool had his work to do, so he was often away from home. Lovely Una didn't mind, for there was plenty to keep her own hands busy, spinning, knitting, and even giving a pretty touch to their great home. Life was very pleasant indeed. One morning, when Finn McCool was busy working with his kin building a causeway to Scotland, the word came that Cuchulainn was coming. Cuchulainn was a giant too, and without a doubt the strongest in the part of the world. And when he walked, the very earth trembled, and the wind, and with one blow of his fist, he had flattened a thunderbolt so it looked like a pancake. He was so proud of that feat that he kept the thunderbolt in his pocket to show all just how strong he was. Every giant in Ireland had been given a good beating by Cuchulainn. Every giant, that is, except Finn McCool. And Cuchulainn swore by the green that he would never rest day or night, winter or summer, until Finn McCool was added to his list. So far, Finn had been smart enough. He kept moving about whenever he heard that Cuchulainn was in the neighborhood. But this time, Cuchulainn was sure to get him. So Finn left the causeway and sped off to Knockmany and his home and his darling Una. "Finn, me love," said Una, greetings him at the door. "What brings you home so early from your work?" "The chance to get a sight of you, my sweet thing," said Finn. Since he was as honest as the summer day is long, he added, "and to keep out of the way of Cuchulainn. He's after me." Una soothed her husband. She brought him his slippers. She lit a pipe for him. Then she stirred up the peat fire so it would be cozy. Then she set down a huge mug of stout and then cut a gigantic slab of soda bread for her dearie. "Finn, husband of mine, enough is enough," said Una, as gently as she could. "For years you've been hiking around from one place to another to avoid this Cuchulainn. Why, you've even built our house high up on the windiest of hills, so you'd be able to spy him coming. You'll not get a moment rest until you stand fast and you face him." I'll be getting plenty of rest if I don't stand fast and he knocks me down. I don't have the heart to face the man who can make a young earthquake just with his walk, and who carries around a flattened thunderbolt in his pocket just to prove his strength. At that, McNair gave her the little dance. "Oh, he's coming," said Finn, his face turning a fine shade of pale green. "Now, hush," said Una. "I couldn't want to think. Do you worry about a work do all I can to help you settle the matter once and for all?" Una then worked a charm that the fairies had taught her. She took 9 woolen threads, each of a different color, and braided them into 3 braids. She put one around her right arm, one circling her heart, and the third around her right ankle. Now, nothing she could do would fail. Next, she sent around to all the neighbors to borrow 21 iron frying pans. She hid them in 21 loaves of bread that she baked in the fire in the usual way. She set them in the cupboard with some bread she had baked the day before. She then took a pot of milk and made it into fresh wet cheese and put it along with some white stones at the foot of the cradle that she had made up. "Now, me darling," she said, handing Finn some baby clothes, "put these on and do everything just as I told you about. And remember," she said at last, Cullcullen's strength lies in this brass finger he has on his right hand. Now quick into the cradle, because I hear that man knocking at the door. All right, woman, bellowed the giant at the door. Where's that coward Finn McCool that I've been chasing after all this time? Well, well, said Una, with her sweetest smile. Now isn't that a shame? Finn was off working on the causeway when some important family affair called him far away. But he'll be home by tea time. So why don't you come right in and sit down? Poor Finn trembled in his cradle. See this, Cullcullen said, pulling out what looked like a pancake out of his pocket. This was a thunderbolt until I caught it and I flattened it. And that's what I'm going to do with Finn McCool, too. Oh, tisk, tisk, said Una. That may not be as easy as you think. Finn McCool's big broth of a man. Why, take a look at our little baby. And you might be getting any ideas of the strength and breadth of Finn himself. Cullcullen peeked into the cradle. Chirp, chirp, said the huge baby, looking back at him. My, said Cullcullen, what a big boy. While you're waiting, why not have a bite to eat, said Una. She put some loaves of bread on the table, along with a can or two of butter and a pile of cabbages. Cullcullen was as much of a glutton as he was a bully, popped a loaf into his mouth and took a huge bite right down on top of a frying pan. Clang! Yow! Shouted Cullcullen. What kind of devil's bread is this? And here are two of my teeth out. That's Finn's bread, the only kind he eats, said Una. Is it a bit too tough for you? Too tough for me, said Cullcullen. I should say not. Just give me another one. And Cullcullen jumped into another loaf, into another, and into another frying pan. I'll not have a tooth left in my mouth, woman. There's two more out. Cullcullen hollered out even louder. The baby began to holler too. Hungry, hungry, hungry. Ah, sweet dumpling, said Una, and she handed baby Finn a loaf. And because there was no frying pan in it, Finn ate it right down. More, more, said the baby, and he gobbled up another loaf. Ah, he seems like a strong lad, said Cullcullen, getting a little bit worried. If this was the baby, the father must indeed be as stronger than he, thought Cullcullen. Ah, yes, said Una, beaming. Why, instead of dollies, he loves to play with those white stones here in his cradle. Show the nice man, baby dear. Finn did as he was told. He picked up a stone that was really the cheese and squeezed all the water out of it and popped it right into his mouth and sat down. Cullcullen was not to be outdone by a baby. He grabbed a stone and he squeezed 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 as he might. He couldn't get a drop of water out of it. He popped it into his mouth and with a chomp, there went the rest of his teeth. The howl that came out of him almost broke all of the windows. When he finally calmed down, Cullcullen said to Una, "What kind of teeth does that lad have? They must be made of iron. Let me see your choppers, baby." At that, baby Finn opened wide his mouth, and Cullcullen stuck his brass finger, the very brass finger that was the secret of his strength. With a strong bite, Finn McCool bit the brass finger right off. Then up Finn leapt and began to pound the daylights out of poor, weak Cullcullen. That was that. Out of the door went Cullcullen, never to bother anyone, let alone Finn McCool again. "Tea's ready, me love," said Una, and Finn McCool sat down with the best giant wife in the whole world, and they lived happily ever after. The end.